I welcome you all back on History Adulan, your own personal educational YouTube channel. Today, let us study new lesson from 8th standard Tribals, Dikus and the Vision of Golden Age. So, who were tribals? Generally, when we study about the history, we know about the prominent leaders and their contribution towards our freedom struggle. But most of the time, we ignore or we don't know about the unsung leaders, tribal heroes of our countries, because their history is not in a written form. Most of the time, it has transferred orally, and today, a lot of people are coming up with the history of these unsung heroes. So, today, we are going to look at one story of such community called tribes. So, who are tribes? Tribes are the people who live in jungles or the forest. They have their own lifestyle, way of life. They have their own belief system. There is a kinship, and there are some leaders or the mukhias whom they used to call sirdars or the sardars. So, what happened to this community, the tribal community? And who were those Dikus? The second word that is mentioned over here is the Dikus. So, who were Dikus? Whom the tribes called Dikus? Dikus were the outsider. The tribals called them Dikus because due to the entry of these Dikus, outsiders, especially the European English company officials, moneylenders, Indian moneylenders, jamindars and traders, when they interfered in the life of tribes, that day onward, their life was disturbed. If you think of the British colonial rule in India, when they came over here, came as a trader, slowly they acquired the rule in India, and in the beginning they plundered the wealth of all the states, provinces in India, and after that they concentrated on implementing and imposing new revenues policies in India. They got lot of revenue through the revenue policies. Further, they also concentrated on introducing new crops which were in heavy demand in the European market. So, this way they introduced new crops in India, and next they turn on to the wealth of the forest. Forests are also wealth of many things. So, that's why these Dikus or the outsiders, foreigners along with the moneylenders, jamindars and others turn on these areas. This interference of Dikus disturbed the lifestyle and the way of life of the tribes. In the initial time, these tribal people were being exploited by these outsiders, but slowly and gradually realized they are being exploited and they rose in revolt. There was a Munda family, and the leader of this Munda family called Birsa Munda, who was found roaming in the forest of Chota Nagpur in Bihar. People believed that he is blessed with miraculous powers. He can multiply grains, and he himself declared as the representative of God on the earth. And he is sent by the God to rescue the people from the Dikus. This made people call him Bhagwan Birsa Munda. We will study in detail about Birsa Munda in the last part of this lesson, closer look at Birsa Munda. But before that, let us see what was the situation and what was the condition of tribes in the forest of India. So, let us begin with the first part. How did tribal groups live in India? So, if you look at the map of India, then there were Vanagujjars in Jammu and Kashmir and Punjab region, Bhotia in Uttar Pradesh, Baigas and Banjaras in central India, Banjaras again in Maharashtra, Mala Irular in Kerala, Munda, Santhal, Orams in Bihar, Jharkhand, Bengal, that region, Khonds in Orissa, and also Nag, Rang and Hajang in northeastern India. So, this is the map that clearly speaks about the population of tribals in India. So, these tribals, they had their peculiar type of activities. They used to conduct several activities into the forest. So, which were those activities? Let us see first. There was one cultivation called Jhum cultivation. Now, what is Jhum cultivation? Jhum cultivation is also known as shifting cultivation or slash and burn cultivation. In Madhya Pradesh, it is also called Bewar. So it is known by different names. So by the word shifting means moving, zoom, or the bewar or the slash and burn, you must have got the idea what kind of cultivation was carried out. Generally, these people who were living in the hills and the forest region, they were full of dense forest. So what they used to do for the cultivation purpose, for cropping purpose, they used to clear a patch of land. And while clearing the patch of land, they used to chop down the branches of the trees, and the leaves and the branches which are gathered, they used to put on fire. Once they get the ash out of fire, this ash is rich in potash and high fertilizer, so that is spread in the soil. Later on, the soil is scratched with a hoe. It is a spade like tool for scratching the land. So it is scratched. There is no plow and others were not used. So scratching work was done. And later on, they were sowing the seeds in a different way. The method of sowing seed in this area or just scattering the seeds on the soil, this is called broadcasting of seeds. And these seeds used to grow and ready for the harvest. And this way they were doing zoom cultivation or the shifting cultivation. Now, once they take production or the cultivation, the land, they thought its fertility got exhausted. Since they were not taking cultivation in the same land, they were changing the patch of land, they were moving on to the other side. There again the same procedure was continued, like cutting, chopping the branches, burning the leaves, ash, then scratch the soil, sow the seeds, that is a broadcasting, and growing the crop. So this community, shifting cultivators, they were not settled. They were moving from one part to another part in order to grow their crops. So this is the one activity, that is zoom cultivation. Next, there were some hunters and gatherers. So hunters and gatherers, generally the early people who were hunters and gatherers, the activity was to hunt animal, and they were feeding themselves on the meat that they were getting from them. So there are some communities, they were just hunting the animals, and they were collectively, whatever the hunts they got in the meat, they were collective hunt, and this meat was distributed among the community. Same way, if the gatherers, they gather the fruits, roots, stalks and other things, those were also collectively gathered and collectively distributed amongst the people. So see how interesting concept, collectivism. Right. So further we also see this type of concept in this one, Russia, isn't it? Stalin's 5-year plan and collective farming and all these thing concepts. But this type of concepts were present in India, in the Indian tribal communities. So that is what the hunters and gatherers, natural oil that was abstracted from some plants like sal and mahua. So these are the trees that are grown in this forest region, and they used to abstract oil from this sal and mahua. That also we need to remember. If you think of some trees like palash and kusum, which are very rich in preparing the colors. So these colors which were obtained from these trees, they were in great demand. So especially the weavers from the locality and the other leather workers who work on prepare the leather slippers and other things, belt and all these things. So they were in touch with these tribals. They used to buy the kusum and palash to color their cloths and leather. So this is what about the hunters and gatherers. Then there were some tribals who are working as laborers to construct the roads, the buildings, also work on the farm of peasants and farmers. So there was a community called laborers. Especially there was a community called Baigas of central India. This community felt going and working into someone's land was below their dignity. So they always respected their own self, that their dignity, and they were against working in someone's land or field. That's why they thought the forest itself is their own property, and they should get and survive themselves by using all the forest produce. So that is what the idea of the Baigas. Then there were some tribals who also exchanged their goods for goods. For example, whatever that they were getting from their forest, like medicinal herbs, shrubs and other things, even the kusum, palash, sal and all these things which they were getting from the forest, that were sold to the other people, and in return they were exchanging the rice and other grains. But what happened with the entry of this Dikus or the foreigners? Traders enter into the forest and they sold their goods, grains and other stuff to the traders. At that time they were buying it in return of cash. So the tribes were not having sufficient cash or almost no cash. So in this situation, the traders were supported by another community called money lenders or the saukars. So these money lenders used to give money or the cash to the tribes and as a loan, and these loans were increasing day by day. That was given at the high rate of interest, and the prices of the goods which were sold by the traders were also at a high rate. So this increased the debt on the heads of tribes, and because of all these factors, tribes felt it difficult to buy the necessity goods for their daily livelihood, and because of this the tribals became poor and their debt odds increased. This is the reason tribals called these outsiders as Dikus and evil outsiders, because of whom their life was threatened. Another activity that was carried out in the forest region by the tribes or the herding. Herding is nothing but to herd the animals, rear the animals. Animals were reared in order to get the milk, prepare the milk product, fur and other things. This group moved from one place to another place in search of grassland. As the grazing lands were exhausted and not in use, the community, the herders used to travel from one part to another part. They were moving, the nomadic. So that they were the herders. Then there was one group of tribals. They felt, how long we are going to move from one part to another? How far you are going in search of food, clothing and shelter? So it is best part to stay at one place and live a settled life. So the communities like the Mundas, Orans, Santhals, so these were some of the communities. They felt, no, let us stay at one place and live, cultivate the several crops they require, herd the animal and other things. So they lived a settled life. When this was observed by British officials, they thought this settled community was more civilized, more cultured, more advanced and progressive compared to those who were nomadic and moving from one part to another part. That's why they thought the settled communities were easy to administer. They can levy different taxes, different acts or the laws can be imposed on them, and the revenue can be obtained very easily. So this is very easy to handle. But the people who were nomadic and moving all the time from one part to another place, that they were difficult to administer and they can't impose tax and they were not under their control. So this is what they observed and tried to bring the other groups, tribal groups, to come together and settle.
Let's see how colonial rule affected tribal lives. Lives of tribal groups changed during British rule. This is what we just saw in the above part. Before the arrival of British, tribal chiefs were important for their people. They enjoyed economic, administrative and social power in the territory. They act as police, judge in their areas and own lands and had their own forest laws. They had their land titles and even rented their lands. But with the British laws, they lost their authority and significance. Besides, tribes had to pay tribute, that means gifts, to British. Discipline the tribal groups unable to fulfill traditional functions. British introduced land settlements and declared some as landowners and tenants. This created a huge gap between the landowners and the tenants that led to the clash. Tenants were supposed to pay rent to the landowners, who in turn paid tax to the state. Forest laws and its impact. Changes in forest laws had a considerable effect on the tribal lives. British declared forest as their state property. Some forests were declared as reserved forest. Forest people were not allowed to move freely there. Hunters, gatherers, zoom cultivators found it difficult to survive in this condition. Many were forced to move other places and take up different occupations. British employed tribes to cut trees, which required for railway sleepers and transport logs. Forest Department established forest villages to ensure a regular supply of cheap labor. Many tribal groups reacted against new forest laws. They disobeyed rules and continued their old practices. This was declared illegal and were punished. This forced tribals to rise in revolt. There were number of revolts taken place. Example, Sangram Sangam in Assam 1906, Forest Satyagraha of 1917 to 1930, Coal Revolt in 1831, Santhal Revolt in 1855, Bastar in Central India 1910, Warli Revolt in Maharashtra 1940.
There were several forest produce which were in a heavy demand in Indian market as well as in the European market, because there were some goods which were available only in the forest and they were not available in any other part. One of the such product was silk. Silk which had too good demand in the European market. Since Britishers turned their attention to increase the production of silk cocoons. 1,000 cocoons were purchased for 3 or 4 rupees and they were sold later on for the high profit. The intermediaries or the British officials used to earn 5 times the profit from these cocoons. So in this way, the people who were the producer or the silk grower used to get very little amount of profit, but who were benefited out of this were the intermediaries and the British officials. Thus, the life of the silk grower was too exploited by these Dikuds.
Many take up work in coal mines of Jharkhand, tea plantation of Assam. They were recruited through contractors who paid them miserably low wages, prevented them from returning home. This created discontent among the tribes.
In the beginning, we talk about the vision of Golden Age and Birsa Munda. Birsa Munda, who was believed as a Bhagwan Birsa Munda and had miraculous powers that he can multiply grains and cure any diseases. Now, cure any diseases and multiply grain means not in reality he had the miraculous powers, but he was knowing the knowledge how to cure the several diseases by using the medicinal herbs. And that's why people believed that if they take someone who is diseased to the Birsa Munda, then definitely the person will be cured. So that was what the faith built in the minds of people. And also same time he can multiply the grains, that here he is not a jadugar or not the miracle he had, but he can multiply the grain. The meaning is that he was knowing the several methods of cultivation, how the fertilizer can be used and all these things, so that can increase the yield. So that is actually mean. But Birsa Munda, he know that the community had a faith in him, and that's why he also said he is a man sent by the God on this earth. He is also God, so that people should have a faith. But his intention was not to treat himself as a God, but to eradicate the British power from the jungles who had ruined their culture. So that was his main intention. During the adolescent stage, Birsa listened to the stories of his ancestors or the Sirdars, how they saw the dream of Satyug or the Golden Age. And what is that Golden Age? They wanted to restore back their ancient past, their glorious past in which there was no interference of some outsiders. So that is what they wanted to restore back, and that's why he called the fight that he wanted to give with the Britishers, that will be the Mulk Ki Ladai, and he wanted to set up a Birsa Raj in his tribal community.
Birsa went to local missionary school for education. He used to listen to the sermons given by the priest. Later, he also spent some time with Vaishnava preachers. He aimed in reforming tribal society, urged Mundas to give up drinking liquor, clean their villages, stop believing in witchcraft and sorcery. He constructed embankments, tapped natural springs, planted trees and orchards, grew crops, asked not to kill brethren and relatives, live honestly, wanted to work on own land and settle down.
Towards the later course of Birsa Munda's phase, he turned against the Christian missionaries and also Hindu moneylenders and the jamindars, because he felt that Christian missionaries is exploiting their culture and the moneylenders and jamindars were exploiting them economically. So they felt these Christian missionaries, moneylenders and jamindars or the traders, they were the outsider, they were the real reason for the exploitation of the tribes. So they wanted to drive them out and set up a Birsa Raj. And because of his rebellion activities, he was arrested by the British in the year 1895. He was imprisoned, remained in jail for 2 years, and later on he was released in the year 1897. After his return, he toured the different villages of his tribal community. He had meetings with the people and he urged the people to fight against the British. He asked for the support of all the tribal communities to fight against British. So that is what he did after released from the jail. He used his traditional symbols and the language to rouse the people to urge and destroy the Ravana. Ravana means the outsiders or the Britishers, moneylenders and others, because of whom their life was disturbed after their interference. So that's why he used all the symbols. If you think of the present modern history, Gandhi also used charkha as a symbol. Same way, here Birsa Munda also use traditional symbols and language to rouse the people and urge to destroy the Ravana. He targeted the symbol of Dikkuts. Wherever the Dikkuts or the foreigners, outsiders had their buildings or the police stations or outposts, they used to attack on that. They burned several police stations, raided on moneylenders, jamindars. So this way they attack on the symbol of Dikkuts. This is all about our lesson, tribals, Dikkuts and the vision of Golden Age. So how Birsa Munda, who was the hero of tribes, rose in revolt and he had a clear vision of a Golden Age Satyug. So I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Keep tuned for more such lessons on our channel History Adulan. Thank you very much for watching.